During the War at Marineford, Blackbeard violated one of the core beliefs of the One Piece world when he suddenly gained the power of a second Devil Fruit. And this game-changing power made Blackbeard one of the absolute strongest characters in the world. But have you ever wondered what might happen if Luffy got to eat a second Devil Fruit as well? And what fruit would actually be the perfect combo to pair with his original powers? Well, I was thinking about the absolute best options, and the very first fruit that we're going to explore as Luffy's second power is one of the most powerful Devil Fruits in the entire story. But it's not going to be the overpowered Magma Fruit or the even more insane abilities of Law's 𝚤𝚤𝚤𝚤 no Mi. So which one is it? Well, let's kick off things with the Venom Fruit, which is an amazing complement to Luffy's rubber abilities, and you will see why in just a second. But as you might remember, this fruit was originally eaten by the warden of the underwater prison Impel Down, Magellan here, and it has unbelievably strong abilities that are absolutely perfect to pair up with Luffy's current powers as well. And in case you forgot, this is a Paramecia type Devil Fruit which allows the user to produce different types of poisons, and during the Impel Down arc, Magellan shot out deadly venom hydras, traveled quickly through venom roads, made giant clouds of poison gas, and even unleashed this terrifying venom demon which could literally melt through the entire underwater prison. Now, you may be wondering why I've chosen this particular one as the very first option for Luffy's second fruit. So let me explain here. Imagine if we gave Luffy just a stupidly overpowered Devil Fruit to combine with his Rubber Fruit powers. You know, something like Admiral Kizaru's Light Fruit, I guess? Well, I could imagine that Luffy wouldn't use his rubber powers as often, if at all, since the Light Logia Fruit is simply a godly power. And so instead of just combining two super powerful fruits, kind of making one of them useless, I wanted to pick Devil Fruits that truly complemented his already existing abilities. Plus, we have already discussed how powerful Luffy would be with a different Devil Fruit a couple of times, but giving him a second Devil Fruit on top of his regular one is a completely different beast here. Now, I'm also gonna assume that Luffy has his second Devil Fruit powers right from the start. Now, that might not be possible, but he may have randomly eaten a second fruit by accident, although it is of course equally possible that he could have just eaten a second one after Blackbeard already showed us that it was possible after Marineford. Either way, he would have plenty of time to master his second Devil Fruit powers, which is why the Venom Fruit is an absolute perfect combo power for Luffy, because he can still keep his main fighting style of punches, kicks, and headbutts, but now he can also coat his entire body with deadly poison so that each of his attacks deals way more damage than before, because the venom that this fruit produces is absolutely deadly if he wants to. Straight up, if you touch this stuff, it is basically an instant death sentence. Not only that, but having venom on his body would also be a huge defensive boost, since enemies would not want to touch him at all. Heck, he could also use some of the ranged attacks like these crazy poison gas balls that Magellan uses during his first clash against Luffy. On top of that, as you'll remember, he could travel insanely fast around the insanely massive prison using these venom roads, and he could use gigantic poison attacks that could take out entire groups of enemies all at once, which would have just been perfect during battles like at Marineford or on Fishman Islands. And so, can you just imagine how powerful this would make Luffy? His base form would be ridiculously more powerful than in the original story, and there are a few specific examples where the poison fruit would make Luffy's life so much easier, in particular when he gets into super long battles like the epic 12-hour clash against the Mochi Men Katakuri or the Emperor Kaido. For these fights, Luffy could simply build up poison damage over time, which, if you've ever played a game like Pokemon for instance, you know that a poison buildup over time can kill you just as reliably as a single massive attack, so the longer the fights go on, the weaker Luffy's opponents would get. And another example of this power making a fight way easier is against the string fruit user Doflamingo, because Luffy's deadly poison here could easily melt Luffy's strings before they even had a chance to cut him. And I mean, just imagine how insane Gear 5 Poison Man Luffy would be. There are so many crazy things that he could do by combining his limitless imagination and venom, such as making sticky venom balls to throw all around the battlefield, or if he awakened the venom fruit as well, then he could make the entire environment a poisonous and bouncy minefield that would be absolutely impossible for any enemy to fight on. And yeah, there would be some downsides to this fruit as well for Luffy. I mean, first, just like Magellan, Luffy might get some of the poison in his food, which could send him straight to the toilet for a whole different kind of battle. But even more importantly, Luffy doesn't like to kill people, as you know, and this deadly poison would definitely lead to more deaths than in the original story. So unless Luffy can somehow make a poison that just knocks people out or paralyzes opponents, which not impossible I think with this fruit, then this actually isn't the perfect second devil fruit for Luffy. Which is why the brain fruit might actually be even better for Luffy, because I think we can all agree that Luffy is pretty much an idiot outside of fighting, but if he could learn and remember all of the incredible things that he experiences throughout the story, then he would be truly a genius in the world. I mean, seriously, he has the world's best navigator, helmsman, engineer, swordsman, musician, cook, and archaeologist all on his crew, so if he could learn from each of them, he'd be a literal perfect pirate, I guess. Plus, on top of that, he might stop getting tricked all the time by his enemies, although now that I'm thinking about it, I wonder if Luffy would actually have to read for this fruit to work, so never mind. I guess brain fruit in the trash, plus the head doesn't help with fighting. But before we get into the next absolutely insane second power that we could add to Luffy, we first need to clarify that we don't know if it's actually possible for Luffy to eat 2 devil fruits in the first place. I mean, we were told in chapter 385 by this random guy that eating a second devil fruit would make that person's body explode, which, by the way, is the only time we've ever been told this. And this could possibly be because the spirits of the devil fruits themselves that are allegedly in the fruits could possibly not live together in the same body, but we don't really know for sure if that is actually true. That's why it was so surprising when Blackbeard actually showed us that he could use both the darkness and the tremor fruit at the very same time. However, there are of course a lot of other theories about why he can do this. For example, his special Logia fruit, or that Blackbeard might actually be more than one person. But I also think that it would be absolutely hilarious if just anyone could eat 2 devil fruits, and that the rumor maybe created by the world government was false all along. And so now back to Luffy, we're going to take our normal rubber straw hat captain, feed him this devil fruit, and watch as he evolves into Chop Chop Luffy. And to show you just how mind-blowingly perfect this power would be for Luffy, let's go back to this scene at Marineford where Mihawk is about to slice Luffy into Swiss cheese. Now, luckily enough, Luffy just throws Buggy in front like a shield and the clown tanks the blow. But in our new scenario, Luffy doesn't even need his Buggy shield in the first place, since his Chop Chop powers literally make him immune against damage from any type of blade. Slashes? Cuts? Goodbye. And even overpowered bites or anything sharp like spikes are now absolutely useless against Luffy. So yeah, you might have thought I'm kidding, but this is actually a huge deal for the Straw Hat Captain, since these types of attacks are literally one of the main ways that he is seriously injured in the story. For example, when he was stabbed by Crocodile and Katakuri, or when he gets bitten by Rob Lucci. But of course, this incredibly new level of defense wouldn't be the only upgrade that Chop Chop Luffy would get, because now he can pretty much fly, as we see Buggy do many times throughout the story. However, he can only use this ability as long as his feet stay on the ground. In fact, the author of One Piece even drew us this diagram once to demonstrate exactly how it works. However, with Luffy's combined powers with his rubber powers, his range might extend even further than Buggy's, since he can stretch his body way further. And honestly, I can see so many creative ways for Luffy to attack if he can separate his arms and legs, that he could simply overwhelm enemies by attacking from so many different angles. Plus, his ability to fly early on could help the crew scout, which would have definitely come in handy during the Skypiea arc where the crew was lost in the jungle. Also, Luffy might have been able to climb up back to the Arc Maxime way easier, which could have meant Enel wouldn't have been able to even summon his strongest attack. Although on the other hand, Luffy might get way more distracted since he can now fly and look around, and there is the very obvious weakness to getting kicked in in the nuts. However, there is one big disclaimer for this fruit, which is that we don't know if this fruit is weak to Haki or not. For example, if Mihawk coated his blade with Haki, could he damage Buggy? Though at the same time kind of weird if he hadn't clad it in Haki during the war at Marineford, but if so, then that would be of course a major nerf for this fruit, but we aren't really sure since we've never seen a clear example of this. Though we are explicitly told that he is immune to all blades, so there's a very good chance that Haki blades still don't affect this fruit as well. Which you might disagree with, but really I think no one can disagree with just how perfect these next fruits are going to be for Luffy, and these are so overpowered in fact that they surpass simple fighting power and take just Luffy to the insane next level of overpowered. That's because I'm talking about the biscuit fruit and the cook fruit, which were both introduced during the Whole Cake Island arc. And since both of them allow the user to make an unlimited supply of food, Luffy will never have to worry about getting hungry ever again, which is undoubtedly a perfect power for Luffy since he has such a bottomless pit for his stomach. Kind of just like how you're the perfect person to subscribe to this channel for more One Piece content just like this. But even unlimited food is not the best power up that we can give Luffy, because this next devil fruit is going to take things to an entirely new level. And that's because since Luffy usually already fights with flying punches, axe kicks, and slamming headbutts, there is no greater power boost than simply giving him more arms, legs, and heads to fight with. Which means that Nico Robin's devil fruit power is simply the greatest second devil fruit that Luffy could possibly eat. I mean, don't believe me? Keep in mind that this fruit allows the user to make copies of any part of the user's body and place them anywhere within a certain range, which is just such an OP ability to have, especially for Gear 5 Luffy, as we will see in just a second. But there's even more, because for fighting there are just endless attacks that Robin uses by sprouting limbs. We have the famous clutch, slam, and even supersized versions of all of these attacks. And these powers are also great in a supporting role, since Robin can make copies of her eyes and ears to spy, or combine her limbs into things like nets and wings, which allow her to fly. And so combined with his Sun God Nika fruit, for Luffy, these powers would absolutely take his fighting style to god tier level. He instantly has more arms and legs to fight with, so with his rubber, he could surround enemies with a storm of punches and kicks that would just crush any fighter's endurance. Kind of like how Katakuri made extra mochi arms to completely pummel Luffy back on Whole Cake Island, and these powers would also allow Luffy to get around much easier since he could fly across islands or swing his way through tight places like Impel Down. But that's of course not even the ultimate ability of this fruit, because the final power-up that Robin showed us in Wano might even allow Luffy to use a famous technique from another ultra powerful anime. And that's because Robin's strongest ability allows her to literally make normal or giant-sized clones of herself to fight against opponents. So just imagine Luffy busting out the Shadow Clone Jutsu to make a ton of copies of himself even in Gear 5. This would of course be especially useful in brutal fights against some of the strongest pirates in the world, such as when he battles Kaido. I mean, can you just imagine 100 advanced Conqueror's Haki fists slamming down on the Emperor? Really, that fight might have even been over before Luffy ever has to unlock Gear 5, and especially if Luffy could combine his clones with his other gear techniques. I mean, Luffy would then be nearly unstoppable, though he'd have to increase his stamina quite a little bit to keep up with those powerful clones as well. Plus, I mean, just imagine having multiple Luffys. I mean, man, it would probably break the world. I can just picture one giant Luffy throwing down lightning bolts on Kaido while another giant Luffy rains down fiery punches. I mean, with these two powers combined, he could be literally an unstoppable god. However, even though the flower fruit is undoubtedly the best fruit to pair with Luffy's original devil fruit powers, that doesn't mean that this version of Luffy is the strongest that we could possibly imagine. Because I have to admit that seeing Luffy flying around as a giant red dragon, for instance, is just such an awesome idea that I made a video about what would happen if Luffy ate each of the Yonko devil fruits instead of his own, and you can watch that right here. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.